chug, 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 chug,
Hello, and welcome back to the Wizard Staff. I'm your host, Guy.
And I'm Blake.
And we are two drunk novices who like to talk about EDH. Drink and swear, so you've been warned. Please drink responsibly when you're talking about children's card games. You know, I think I need to call in a friend, because my car battery just died. And I'm going to need someone to jumpstart my car. So why don't we get our friend Derek to come back?
I'm upset that you did that, but hello. Pleasure being back.
Derek liked reviewing core sets so much with us that he decided that he wanted to jump right back in and do...
We get it, Guy. You're a comedian. Your stand-up bit is very impressive.
Do the Jumpstart review with us. So, without further ado, let's start. Alright, I'm done with those kind of jokes for this episode. But yeah, thank you, Derek, for coming back to the podcast. You got a real alcohol this time that's not Clamato juice. So, what is it?
Well, this is a product of Italy. It's a Stella Rosa Moscato d'Asti. So, hopefully I pronounced that right, but yeah.
It sounds very fancy. Blake, what are you drinking?
I am drinking bourbon and orange juice because that's what I had in the fridge.
Oh, wow. I'm drinking my Dogfish Head Sea Quench Ale Session Sour with lime juice, lime peel, black limes, and sea salt.
I feel so outclassed. I'm just here drinking my bourbon and OJ.
Alright. As my poor jokes at the beginning kind of alluded to, but tonight we are talking about Jumpstart. What's Jumpstart? Well, Jumpstart is a new way to play Magic the Gathering that mashes together themes throughout its history of the game and lets you skip the deck building part. If you can't wait to have pirates head into battle with unicorns, just open 2 booster packs, smash them together, and ride on. So if you absolutely must merge the greatest evils in the multiverse together, cats and the Phyrexians, those packs will be waiting for you. So this is a set mainly of reprints and meant to be kind of an introduction for people who are just learning how to play. And it's easy, they do the deck building for you, and the power level is also somewhat pretty tame, and there's not a lot of complexion when it comes to the mechanics, so they didn't need to invent anything new. It's all just re-existing mechanics that we've seen, kind of similar to what you get in the core set. So each booster contains 20 cards centered around a theme. What theme each booster contains is randomized, but each themed booster comes with 20 cards that will be sealed inside the pack and labeled. There are over 500 reprints and 37 new cards. No foils, however, because of experimentation with printing technologies, apparently.
Yeah, that's what Mark Rosewater said in one of his blog posts. So I know a bunch of Commander players are going to be a little bit miffed that they can't get these nice cards in foil. Yeah, it just kind of sucks.
Yeah, my fear was that the foils are now going to go up in price because due to scarcity of these reprints and their foil counterparts just kind of being lower now.
Foils can't go up in price if you don't print them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, as someone who really likes foils, you know, it's a little saddening to hear, but I'm still excited for the set.
Okay, and so Jumpstart is only legal in Eternal formats. So, what are those? Legacy, Vintage, Pauper, and the big one, Commander.
Yeah.
So not legal in Standard, Pioneer, or Modern. And apparently, and I'm not 100% sure what this means, but 1 in 3 boosters includes an extra rare.
I think it could be just that, like, the packs, instead of following, like, the standard, like, booster pack protocol, they might include like an extra rare just to be able to balance out the power levels of the decks.
I mean, there's common, uncommon, rare, mythic, so that's what it means. It's an extra rare every 3 booster packs.
Okay, so yeah, that actually does seem pretty high, but it's good because, you know, more likely to open up some of those cards that you want. And a lot of the reprints too include the errata with the changes with the dogs turning into hounds and the recent keyword of milling. So Thought Scour, you know, used to write out, put the top couple cards into the graveyard, but now just says mill 2 or whatever number.
Honestly, hadn't realized that until you wrote that in the notes, and I'm like, oh, I like that. It's, again, making the game more simple. Every Magic player basically knows mill, and if you don't because you're new, every other Magic player will tell you.
Yeah, and this is also, since it's an introduction, when someone reads mill, you're more than likely going to be playing with someone who will know what that means and can explain it to you. And they might still be even writing out on the card what it means until people become more acquainted with what that actually means. And so, Core Set is officially out now as you are listening to this, but Jumpstart does have a close tie-in to the Core Set 2021. They share a lot of the content and release. So there are some packs with themes in them that are tied directly into Core Set 2021. So there's like a pack for Teferi, there's a pack for Chandra, there's a pack for Garrick. So if you want to learn more about some of the cards that you could be potentially opening up and these theme boosters, go listen to our M21 set review for legendaries and the 99. We got 2, baby.
And before we move into reprints, I'd just like to say that we are putting this episode out closer to the paper release and arena release of Jumpstart. The set and all of its cards have been spoiled for a fair amount of time now. Everyone's gone to see them, but we've still had to wait a long time for all this to come out. So we just decided to, chill out and wait a bit and not be part of the hype culture.
All right. So Blake, why don't you go into some of these pretty lit reprints that we got here?
Oh, I would love to. Okay, we're going to go in Wooburg order. That means white, blue, black, red, green. So we're going to start off with white. We have Angelic Arbiter, Cathar's Crusade. That was expensive. Isamaru, Linvala, Keeper of Silence. That was also really expensive. Mentor of the Meek, Path to Exile. Now we move into blue. We have Kira, Great Glass Spinner, Coastal Piracy, Rhystic Study.
So with the Rhystic Study that got reprinted in this, but WotC has now announced that they are discontinuing the use of Therese Nelson's artwork, and Zendikar Rising, which is the next set that'll come out in Q3, will be the last time that WotC uses Therese Nelson's artwork.
But Guy, why is that the last time they're going to use her artwork?
I know that a lot of players, will put out saying we call for, this to be, we no longer want you to support this artist. And WotC hears your comments. It just takes them a while to be able to backtrack on some of the things, just because of once they've kind of submitted it into their database and get the ball rolling with the printing and everything, it's really hard to recall that just in the moment that it happens. So very similar, but Noah Bradley is another artist that Magic is going to be discontinuing to work with, who was just recently called out as well. But a few of his artworks will be used in a few future sets, but it's just hard for WotC to pull back on that now because of where they are in the process.
So, moving onward, we have Talrend Sky Summoner, we have Vidalcan Archmage, and then we have Black. With Black Market, Blood Artist, Drana, Liberator of Malakir, Ghoulcaller Gisa, Gonti, Lord of Luxury, Harvester of Souls, Reanimate, Rise of the Dark Realms, Exquisite Blood, that was $20 at least, and also Shieldred Whispering one, which is also at least $20.
Exquisite Blood was definitely $50.
Oh, it was even more than that? Ah, Jesus. Alright, we have red, and we have Atali Primal Storm, Krenko Mob Boss, everybody's like favorite goblin, Young Pyromancer. And then we move into green, and we start off with Crater Hoof Behemoth, a definitive $50 plus card. I never thought they'd do that. And they reprinted Oracle of Moldiah. Like, both of these cards, blowing my mind that they reprinted these. Thank you very much. It is not unappreciated. This Oracle of Moldiah was like $40 last time I checked. And, goodness. So, thank you for that. We also have Galta Primal Hunger, Lurking Predators, Primal Bounty, Rampaging Brontodon, which is only ever printed as a giveaway card at an F&M event. Rishkar's Pima Renegade, Selvala Heart of the Wilds, which got actually really expensive lately, at least over $20. Soul of the Harvest. Then we have a few artifacts. Herald's Horn, only ever printed in the C17 decks, and Scarecrow, which was surprisingly like over $15 for some reason. And then we have some lands like Phyrexian Tower and Riptide Laboratory. That's a lot of reprints, I'd say.
Oh yeah. Holy shit.
Like, when I heard Jumpstart months and months ago, I was not expecting, like, oh, this is actually going to matter to Commander players. But it is.
Yeah, I think it's a really awesome way of like sneaking in like reprints that aren't into printing like overpowered things into standard. So it makes me really excited to see that like Wizards is finally like understanding that Commander demand is getting bigger and bigger, and that some of these cards, the prices were out of control.
There's a lot of cards like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think we have Double Masters coming up in a couple weeks after this episode goes out. And what are we going to get there? I was thinking, oh, maybe Oracle of Moldiah will show up there, or we'll get her in Zendikar Rising. I mean, that could happen, because, again, more reprints, the better. But it makes me excited that WotC has now kind of acknowledged that some of these card prices are too ridiculous, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Even if these only go down like $7, that's still meaningful, I'd say.
Any discount is nice when it comes to this very expensive hobby, you know?
Yeah, yes. Alright, shall we move into the legendary creatures, guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alright, well, Derek, I think you deserve to start us off here.
Yeah?
That's exactly what I was about to say. Derek, take it away.
Sounds good. For Emil the Blessed, 2 colorless, white, legendary creature unicorn, 4/4. For 3 generic mana, it can exile another creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And then it says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay like hybrid mana, Selesnya mana, and if you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And if it's a unicorn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it instead.
So, what you're saying is Unicorn Tribal Tier 0 confirmed.
I agree. Definitely ridiculously OP.
No, that's not what's happening.
Step aside, Thrasios. Emil's here.
But can I talk about this card? I really want to talk about this card.
Go for it.
Take it away.
Alright, so if you want to build a casual Unicorn Tribal deck, go ahead, go for it. More power to you. But I'm just going to say it's better as a 99 card. We really care about that first ability more. It's an amazing flicker effect for 3 reasons. 1, it's 3 generic. It's pretty easy to satisfy that requirement instead of, say, white, green, which is a more restrictive activation cost. It's most comparable to Eldrazi Displacer, and what keeps Eldrazi Displacer from being as good as this card is the fact that you have to play a colorless in that activation. Number 2, it's not a tap ability, so you can do this multiple times at instant speed. You don't have to tap, untap, try and get around that. And then reason number 3, the creature comes back immediately instead of at end of turn like a lot of flicker effects. So, flickering synergizes with creatures with ETBs, enter the battlefield effects. And at the very least, it'll generate some pretty good value by paying 3 mana each time. So let's start with something simple like Elvish Visionary. You can pay 3 mana, flicker it, draw a card. That's all right. And there's a huge ceiling to this card. At best, you can use it to make infinite mana with cards like Dockside Extortionist by generating at least 4 treasures and infinitely flickering it because you're netting 1 treasure each time. And boom, you've made infinite mana. Easy.
Or you could use cards like Palancron or Peregrine Drake, who have those abilities where when they enter the battlefield, it's untap up to X lands. So you would just tap a bunch of lands, use the 3 mana, flicker it, untap a bunch, and then keep doing that, just a bunch.
That's a great example too. And on top of this, you can run cards that reduce the activation cost of Emil, like Zerta the Dawnwaker, Pyromancer's Familiar, or Training Grounds. And this can reduce that activation cost and make these combos even easier to accomplish. And then on top of that, the flickering can also be used defensively instead of proactively. Just imagine in response to your Elvish Visionary being targeted with a kill spell or something, you just flicker it in response and it doesn't die. That's awesome.
Yeah, so the appropriate thing to do would be kill the unicorn before anything else, right?
Yeah, because it can't protect itself. That's what you gotta do. Overall, this is a really good card. I think this is actually one of the best cards of the set.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this card is really strong. I can definitely see it being used in CEDH or even just high power commander tables because flickering by itself just allows so much combo or abuse potential for just a really high power ceiling in a lot of decks. And then if you want to tone it down and be casual, you can have this be your tribal leader for Unicorn Tribal. Synergizes with an enchantment that we will talk about later. And then you can use stuff like Teamer Sabertooth, just as you said, Eldrazi Displacer, a lot of blink shenanigans. But something that I've seen is that if you have a Persist synergy, like Murderous Redcap or something with a Sack Outlet, you have the ability to basically just instantly, consistently combo that and do a decent amount of damage. Yep.
Exactly. The ceiling on this card is insane.
So, quick question for you guys. So we're talking about, this is very good potential for CEDH in the 99, and then also potentially good for a casual unicorn build. So do you think this will see much play as a 99 casual card because of its ability, or do you think it will just kind of be meant more for the two descriptions that we just mentioned?
I'll answer that. I do think it's really best in CEDH metas, but you totally can play between CEDH and Unicorn Tribal, because again, you can just pay 3 mana, instant speed, potentially repeatable if you have more mana, to just flicker an Elvish Visionary and draw a card for 3 mana. And that's just a simple example. There's a lot of creatures with ETB triggers that you can just I flicker my Reclamation Stage, blow up your artifact, boom, 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 boom. Do that occasionally. I think this card can go in a lot of different decks across all power levels. Yeah,
and then if you want to build jank or just good stuff, it still does +1/+1 counters. You could do silly stuff with the Ozolith, so it can definitely go into any type of meta, I believe.
Yeah, I hope that this is one card that WotC recognizes needs a reprint soon and in foil.
It just came out.
Well, I can already imagine this being a Judge promo next year with some cool art.
Oh my god.
And in foil, because they did that with Yuriko, who became one of the most popular commanders very quickly, and then they gave her the foil treatment. So I hope that WotC recognizes that this also needs it.
I'll jump on that bandwagon. Alright, let's talk about the next card, which is Bruvac, the Grandiloquent.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, yeah, a reminder, we drink on this podcast, so it's hard for me to read names. It is 2 and a blue for a legendary creature human advisor for 1, it's a 1/4. And if an opponent would mill 1 or more cards, they mill twice that many cards instead. So I think it's the most mill commander that ever milled in the history of mill, I'd say.
The one true mill commander.
And yes, this is making Persistent Petitioner rise in price because it's basically a petitioner, a human advisor. And you can just one-shot people with Traumatize, which is really awesome. It's a nice casual deck. It's cool. I like mill.
Yeah, I like it because it does make it a little... I think it'll be a good starting point for anyone who does want to build a mill deck, because, this is a good way to start. And then if you really want to, build up to it, you could make it a little more complicated or make it a little more combo heavy. So, I like him.
Yeah, I think by being mono blue, though, that he kind of limits the mill archetype, because a lot of Dimir or blue-black decks are very combo oriented and have a lot of mill synergy. Just an example, there's Ashia Dream Render, and then there's a new companion that was recently released, Garuda. So there's a lot of good stuff in blue as well. And then so I think that by limiting yourself to just blue, you're making a more fair mill deck as opposed to the standard combo. Yeah, because compared to commanders like Phoenix, I think this is more generically good, just casually milling you. But of course, blue is also very good at going infinite, so it can very easily go into that combo territory as well.
Next, we got Ineas, the Gale Force. 3 blue, legendary creature, Jin, 4/4, flying, 2 colorless, hybrid Azorius, so white-blue. Attacking creatures with flying get +1/+1 until end of turn. Whenever 3 or more creatures you control with flying attack, each player gains control of a non-land permanent of your choice controlled by the player to their right. So you get to make all of the decisions with this.
Yeah, this is a strange card. In EDH, Azorius kind of struggles with win cons, actually closing out the game, and I'm not quite sure this sort of chaotic effect is going to really get you there, because generally you want to be doing your own strategy. You don't want to be relying on your opponents that much. I'm a little bit skeptical. I mean, I will say this. I think it's a really cool casual deck that's going to be really political, and you can make some really cute deals, and I think a lot of people will have fun with this.
I definitely really like this deck, though, because I think flying tribal has always been really cool, even if it's very casual. So the fact that it creates an anthem effect that's repeatable, I think that is underrated. And then it's also the whole idea of gaining control of non-land permanent. Azorius can also be very good at creating tokens. So if you just trade away a token for a big threat, or make a deal saying that you're going to give someone a big threat if they don't swing it at you, say they have an Eldrazi with Annihilator, that is very nasty. I think this is a very cool card. And then flying has always had a lot of synergy because of cards like Favorable Wind that give creatures with flying +1/+1, or things like Watcher of the Spheres, which is an Azorius card that lets creature spells with flying you cast cost 1 less. I think it's a very underrated archetype, and I'm excited because Azorius is typically very boring and backseat, which this can be as well, though.
I definitely saw this as a 99 piece for cards like Zedru. Maybe if you're trying to go the Chaos route with Aminatu because of her ultimate ability. And I also just thought of Pramicon last second, because Pramicon being that wall commander that's Jeskai, and saying you can only attack the player to left or right. I think you get to decide. But this is nice because you can either then play Pramicon and have this out, and I believe also Pramicon is defender, so it's not attacking.
Right.
But where I'm going with this is you're then able to really kind of control the board and take some of the biggest threats and then send them in one direction, in that direction not being you. especially when you're only having one person to worry about in that moment. That's kind of a specific situation of like where it goes best for this deck. I'm not saying that now Pramicon is the new unicorn tier 0 tribal killer, but I think this is an interesting tech piece for cards like that. And also like Zedru does. Zedru says something about like if you control, more cards that aren't your own at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to like draw a card or something. So yeah, it seems good.
Dude, if you kill me with Pramicon Secret Commander Inez, I will buy you like 3 beers.
I feel like that's a reoccurring theme, recurring theme where Blake challenges you to build a commander deck with underrated cards, Come at me.
Dude, I'm a man of my word, at least.
Alright, so last time it was the mono red commander. But anyways, let's move on. Alright, this is Ormos, Archive Keeper. 4 generic, blue, legendary creature Sphinx, 5/5 flyer. And it says, if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead put 5+1/+1 counters on it. And then its second ability is for 1 generic and blue, so 3 mana total. Discard 3 cards with different names and draw 5 cards.
So what you're saying is that this should go in the previously mentioned Inez deck because it has flying and it's blue.
Dude, this is broken. Like, I'll just cut in real quick and say, like, I think I'm obviously like being a little facetious about this being a broken card. Like, if you just ignore the first ability, I think like the fact that it gives you a draw outlet for like digging into 5 cards in your deck for 3 mana and like ending up with like a net 2 gain, like 2 cards for 3 mana, I think that's like very strong. And then if you do want to play around with the first ability, like I think there's like some strange scenarios where like you can try to set up like Nexus of Fate to like just repeat like extra turn and like kill someone with commander damage. But I also think like if you're gonna go that route, there are better options like Lab Maniac,
That just sounds like winning with extra steps.
I mean, that's what an extra turn is, right? Anyway.
Good. No, just play like Lab Man and Jace Wilder Mysteries and Thassa's Oracle and just win the game, dude.
Yeah, and so my understanding too is, so the ability, if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead put 5+1/+1 counters on it. And so if you activate the ability 1 blue, discard 3 cards with different names, draw 5 cards, which is easy to do in Commander because of course all of our cards have different names. So when you draw those 5 cards, for each card that you are quote unquote not drawing, you would put 5+1/+1 counters onto the Sphinx. So that would mean that you would get 25 counters?
Yep, it's a huge giant beat stick.
Wow.
It's alright. It's like Big Timmy energy.
Well, this seems like the new Voltron commander that everyone's gonna do.
Dude, Voltron,
I will
Ormos,
fight you.
I see it.
I hate you all so much. Alright, I'm going to talk about this next card before you 2 memers get to talk anymore. We're going to talk about Kel's Fight Fixer. It is 2 and black, legendary creature, Azra Warlock. It is a 4/3 with Menace that says whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may pay Hybrid Dimir, so blue-black. If you do, draw a card. And then it also has an activated ability of 1 and sacrifice a creature. Kel's gains indestructible until end of turn. So I actually have a lot to say about this card. I'm going to say it as quickly as I can. There's lots of ways to play this card as a commander. It can be a casual aristocrats deck that sacrifices creatures and draws cards, or you can play this more competitively and join the ranks of other fringe CDH Dimir decks like Una, Circu, Yuriko. Your win cons usually being Isochron Scepter plus Dramatic Reversal, make infinite mana, cast Kel's Sacrificer to her own ability over and over and over, and draw your entire library, and again you're floating infinite mana, so you can probably just win from there. You can do Ad Naus, you can do Consultation Tainted Pact Lines, or Doomsday. I have been seeing some people like highly critique this card, saying that it doesn't feel like a black and blue card, which I don't really understand because it sacrifices creatures, which is black, and it also draws cards, which is blue. So I don't really understand that critique, but I will agree with the critique that is very simple and kind of boring design, and I will admit that one. But I also will fight against the argument that this doesn't have much flavor to it because, you know, she's a fighter, like she's fixing fights on arenas of Battle Bond. She is very sneaky. She is very demure. This is a demure card. She is conniving.
Yeah, I don't understand what an Azra is. That's where I'm confused. So if anyone has any information on that and wants to fill me in.
It was a creature type that was introduced in Battle Bond.
God, guy, how could you not know that? Hello?
What is it, though?
He just said it's a creature type
introduced
in Battle Bond, guy. How could you not know that?
I understand that it comes from Battle Bond, but what is it? Like, what is an Azra?
I'm just gonna keep saying the same thing louder than you every single time you ask.
Alright.
Yeah, but
it's just a made-up creature type.
Here,
Don't
Azra are native on Kylum and have distant demonic ancestry. Anyways, back to the card itself. The sack outlet, it costs I think the sack outlet costing 1 mana isn't ideal because of the fact that the dual altars, Phyrexian and Ashnod's, they both do it for cheap. Like, once you have the card on the field, you have an infinite sack outlet. There are also cards like Viscera Seer that let you have that aspect, or Yeheni. So I think that as a pure sack outlet, it's not ideal. It also gives like flexibility with the draw though. So I do think that paying like 1 mana to draw a card is nice. And you know, we were talking about Voltron with the last commander, right? With the Sphinx. But I actually think that like for 4 mana, 4/3 and menace, this is it could be a secret Voltron deck because of the fact that
you're killing me.
Like, it has menace, which means that most people won't be able to block it early. And then if you do manage to get a few combat tricks, like maybe Tainted Strike to like infect someone to death, like I think that this can actually sneak in commander damage kills or infect kills.
I don't think I could have said it any better myself, Derek. Like, you're absolutely right. Like, you know, well, why don't we just move on to the next commander who is also, you know, Voltron.
True.
Somehow.
What?
Then that's Tiny
so
Bones,
much.
of course. You know, everyone's talking about how he's the new Voltron King. Kidding. Alright, so Tiny Bones, Trinket Thief. 1 and a black, legendary creature, Skeleton Rogue, 1/2. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent discarded a card this turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. And then for 4 generic black, each opponent with no cards in hand loses 10 life. And he is the most, I think, talked about commander. Just because everyone's like, oh, he's so cute. Look at those little bones.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and he's probably just going to get more and more popular because of that. So, I think our friend Jesse already built a Tiny Bones deck. Not surprised, though.
I do want to just say this to any of you listening. I want to caution, especially new players, about building this deck, because Tiny Bones asks you to build a discard deck, which hasn't ever really existed in Commander. Not really. Like Kroxa and Nath the Guildleaf are like the closest examples. But I don't know if you've ever played with casual EDH players. They don't like losing all the cards in their hand and having to top deck. They get kind of pissed, and they will all gang up on you. It's... yeah.
Like, it's fine, because if you discard all the cards, then you can just make them each lose 10 life. It all balances itself out. I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah, that's only gonna piss them off more, but no, I do actually like this card simply because it is introducing a true discard deck, a commander deck, to the commander format. It hasn't really been a thing. Cards like Thoughtseize and Duress and Liliana the Veil are really good in other formats, but not good in EDH because they don't scale across formats. And so this is really cool because this is affecting all of your opponents. They're having to discard down while you are drawing cards, because that's typically the problem with discard commanders, is that you're wasting all of your cards trying to get all of your opponents down to no cards, and in the end, you all basically have no cards. Your opponents usually have better board states, and they just attack into you and you die. Tiny Bones solves that problem and actually makes this the first true discard commander, which is awesome.
Yeah, to build on Blake's point a little bit, I think that this is a strong commander for sure, but when you run it, you have to understand that majority of the table will probably try to kill you. So if you do build this, you definitely need to build it as powerful as possible if you want to play it, actually play the game, because no one likes losing their card or to discard. And this is a 2-mana 1/2 skeleton rogue, so I don't think he'll be able to chump much in general if people are swinging at you. But I also want to say that the ability to deal 10 damage to each opponent with no cards in their hand, if you are playing Tiny Bones and saving him before that, it does cost you 8 mana that turn, 2 to cast the commander, and 6 to activate the ability. So it's definitely a little bit mana intensive for mono black. So just be careful with that.
I do think people will cast Tiny Bones on turn 2 every single time, though.
Yeah, I think it's never a bad play to play him out, unless you know that he'll get hated out immediately. So
the 2 comments I was going to make was, well, first, doing 10 damage to each of your opponents in the same turn is no big deal if you're playing Perforos. That's just chump life. That's easy. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it.
Get out of here.
So then my second comment is, I guess it's more of a question. When do you think is the appropriate time to play Tiny Bones? Do you want to get him out on curve, or do you want to wait kind of later in the game when you're probably playing other card effects that are getting your opponents to discard a lot of their cards?
I think you play him out as early as possible. He is basically a draw engine, assuming the fact that you have built all of your 99 around a discard theme. He is your draw engine. And of course you can play other draw engines, but he's why would you... The question is why would you not play him on turn 2? On curve. Yeah,
I would say the only time you don't play him immediately is if you're setting up for something else. But it's usually like Blake said, he's a draw engine and he's very powerful.
So you wouldn't be running other cards in your deck too that are going to want to protect him, right?
See, the thing with discard as a theme, I don't necessarily know if mono black has the tools to protect him, but it might have some graveyard recursion themes. So if you're discarding the strongest cards out of people's hands, maybe you can reanimate or Rise of the Dark Realm, stuff like that.
Which just got a reprint.
Okay, so this is Muxus, the Goblin Grandee. Okay, so he's 4 generic, red, legendary creature, Goblin Noble, 4/4. So when this guy enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of your library, put all Goblin creature cards with converted mana cost 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When it attacks, it gets +1/+1 for each other goblin you control until the end of the turn. Wow.
First, if you just type in Goblin MTG into Google Images, you'll notice that just about all of them are less than 5 CMC. So I don't know too many goblins that are actually going to be more than 5 CMC. CJ
There's very few.
Commander is the high mana costed one that I'm thinking of right now, but he's 5 CMC, so he's still good. And when you're getting one of these goblins, most likely one of these is also creating more tokens of goblins, so you're getting a lot of goblins. But good new Goblin Tribal Leader. Goblin Recruiter just becomes more and more valuable because of this, and I think this will pair really well with the new Conspicuous Snoops card that we talked about from M21, since that combo is also workable in the Mono Red Goblins. So you'll have Goblin Recruiter, Conspicuous Snoops, Kiki Jiki, Mog Fanatic.
I think this just proves that Conspicuous Snoop is already paying dividends. It's already making an impact.
Yeah, Kiki Jiki, that's probably the one that's... Is it 6 mana? No, it's 5 mana, so I guess it would... Goddamn.
Yeah.
I wonder if they did that on purpose.
Yeah, goddamn. Alright, so... Okay. This seems like a better Goblin leader than we got from the one last year, at least.
Yeah, I think he's finally, like, you know, a top-end Goblin for Mono Red, because, like, Mono Red in general tends to run out of steam, you know. I played against guys Perforos, and he always barely kills people. So, I think that this card is nice because it lets Goblin decks, like, reset, and gives the tribe the ability to kind of basically place, like, 6 cards potentially onto the battlefield immediately. The biggest question that I have, though, other than the fact that like it has like good reach and like finishing power, but the question would be then, do you guys run this over Krenko as commander? Because I still think that Krenko holds the title of like the best Goblin tribal commander.
I would say Krenko is still going to be more popular. This commander, Muxus, is going to be much more glass cannon, where you just want to search out your Goblin Recruiter every single time, and if you can't, you're kind of dead in the water.
Yeah, I think to kind of Blake's point, you are probably trying to set up for that one glass cannon combo, and if you don't pull it off, then it's not good for you. Whereas I feel like Krenko always being in the command zone and having access to him, he's always going to be a good play for you to get him out. He'll make a bunch of Goblin tokens. So maybe Muxus has potential to, you know, be able to combo off a little easier, but I feel like the hoops to jump through are not going to be worth, especially for Mono Red. I don't feel like it's going to be worth it.
So before we move on to the next card, I just want to throw in one last jab at Jake. Oh, not Jake, Blake. Sorry, as you said, we've been drinking. Blake. So the second line of text that says that it gets +1/+1 for each Goblin. You know, I feel like Voltron decks really care about power.
I swear
so
to
I'm
God.
just throwing that out.
Oh my
anyway,
Lord.
so
I hate
who
you
wants
all
to read?
so much.
Who wants to read Deathron, the Hurloon General?
I'm going to read the next card, so y'all will stop.
Is this Jumpstart or Voltron Start?
I hate you all so much, you fuckers. Alright, we have Sethron, Hurloon General. It is 3 and red, legendary creature, Minotaur Warrior. It is a 4/4. That whenever it or another non-token Minotaur enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/3 red Minotaur creature token. And then it has an activated ability of 2 and hybrid Rakdos, being black-red. Minotaurs you control get +1/+0 and gain menace and haste until end of turn. So, I don't know, it's like a Minotaur tribal deck. Seems really casual, and it's probably the best Minotaur tribal commander we have, which is a pretty low bar.
I mean, you got the 3 Nehebs, but none of them really cared about.
There's also the King of Tribal, Morophon, the Boundless.
Oh my god, we don't talk about Morophon.
But I think that this is an interesting card because Minotaurs in general are not like the best supported archetype, but there are some cool menace cards that have come out recently that also like synergize with the whole like menace matter kind of concept. Like there's Labyrinth Raptor, which like basically forces someone to sack a creature when a creature with menace is being blocked. There's also like Sonorous Howlbonder, which basically makes it so that menace can't be blocked except by like 3 or more creatures. So there's definitely like some cute stuff you could do with it.
I'm just kind of noticing, but we are getting 1, 2, 3, 4 different tribal leader decks.
Guy, don't spoil the joke. That's the running gag.
Seems fine. Like, that one card, Didgeridoo, went up a lot because of this card.
If you don't play a Didgeridoo as you're playing this deck, I'm going to be disappointed.
How much is Didgeridoo? How much is a foil Didgeridoo?
Oh my god.
Yeah,
You and
there it
foils.
is. You and foils. Shut up, Blake. Oh, it's not in foil. It's $8. Okay, I guess it's not as expensive as I thought. Yeah, Minotaur Tribal. Tier 0.
Tier 0 confirmed.
Alright, next commander. Alright, Zurzov. Chaos Rider. 2 red legendary creature devil. 2/3. Whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 red devil creature with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever one or more devils you control attack one or more players, you and those players each draw a card, then discard a card at random.
Devil Tribal Tier 0 confirmed. Alright, I'm done with that joke. I'm sorry. So most of the time you swing in, you make 3 devils as everyone loots, and then if your opponents draw cards during other players' turns, like Ristic Study, for example, you make more devils. It's kinda meh. It's draw and burn, which is kinda nice. It's a casual deck.
You would want to run some good ways of doubling that damage, or even now tripling that damage, with cards like Fiery Emancipation, Furnace of Wrath, Gratuitous Violence, etc. And then, back to what Blake said, like, drawing cards, making your opponents draw cards on when it's not their turn, so like Wheel of Fortune and Winds of Change are good. But I feel like if you're going to be making a casual Devil Tribal deck, you're probably not going to be wanting to shell out over $100 for a Wheel of Fortune.
That's
Yeah.
true.
There's not much to really say about this card because, like, I don't think Devil as a tribe has been supported that well, and then this definitely seems like a more like standard, or as you guys said, casual kind of deck due to the fact that if a Devil dies, usually they only ping like for 1. So in a format with 40 life, that has very limited utility.
You mean this card isn't worth talking about because it's not the next best Voltron commander, right?
Anything can be Voltron if you try hard enough, you know?
Oh my lord.
Yeah, that's actually right. Anything.
Okay, do I need to come over there and smack you two? Do I need to like smack some sense into you two?
What I am now just kind of like thinking in my head is like, what's the difference between a devil and a demon?
So moving on, the next card, Naya from the Dinosaur for 2 generic, green, legendary creature, human warrior. It's a 3/3. Whenever one or more creatures you control fighter becomes blocked, draw a card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 2 hybrid ghoul mana, and then if you do, double the target creature's power until the end of the turn, and that creature must be blocked this combat if able.
So it's asking you to play fight cards, and there's about 70 of those in Gruul currently. And this is another casual deck. It's cool. It's
Fight Tribal.
fight me, bro.
I definitely think that this is one of the more interesting cards because I feel like Gruul is pretty predominantly Xenagos, like as like a top tier kind of commander, and like this basically gives like a different avenue to under-supported like area. So I'm glad that Wizards is kind of experimenting with this because I do think that like there are some decent fight cards out there that can be utilized. And then especially like just an example, there's like the new like Kogla, the Titan 8, and also from from M21 itself, there's the Rash Taunter, which basically like forces people to fight it.
Yeah, on that note, it's the kind of design that we want to see from Wizards of the Coast. It's the kind of design that makes irrelevant cards to Commander suddenly relevant. It's bringing in all these irrelevant fight cards and suddenly making them matter and important and playable in some deck.
Yeah, really happy it exists.
It just gives more variety to the decks that we will see. So it's like, oh, you got your Gruul fight deck. Let me guess, Xenagos? Now I'm like, huh, is it going to be Xenagos or is it going to be Naive? So, there will be... It's nice that they'll, diversify it a little. Okay, well, that was all the legendary creatures. And I do want to point out that I think green and white were the only two that did not get a monocolor commander. So we had 10 total, but most of them were either an ally pairing or blue, red, and black each got a monocolor. White and green did not. So what's up with that, Wizards?
It's fine. I'm not going to complain about it too much.
I think it's fine that green didn't, because, green gets a lot of really good, strong commanders that are just like...
Don't open up that Pandora's box. We're not going to go there.
Alright, whatever. Alright, let's just move on. Let's go into the 99. So we got 5 cards and a land cycle to go over.
So, we have the Thriving Lands cycle. It's the Bluff, the Grove, the Heath, the Isle, and the Moor. They enter the battlefield tapped, and as it enters the battlefield, choose a color other than the color that is on this card, and then it can tap to add the color that is on this card or 1 mana of the chosen color. It's an ETB tapped land that probably goes in budget EDH decks that are running 3 or more colors. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think these are best in the decks that are the 3+ colors, since they help you fix your mana for the color that you need in that moment. Obviously, there's better options, especially if you're in the 2-color decks. I like that they're flexible, and I like the design space that WotC is kind of experimenting with here. So hopefully we can maybe get some more usable versions of these in the future. But if you are using these, please, 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 just make sure you keep track of what color you declare when you are playing them.
Yeah, I think that flexibility in land cycles is very cool. Just the ability to basically mana fix for any 3+ color deck. That's pretty cool. It's not fast mana, which means that these cards will be cheaper. Yeah, I like the design.
Alright, next we got Blessed Sanctuary. 3 white enchantment. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white unicorn creature token. I like this card a lot since it doubles your board presence and helps prevent non-combat damage. And it seems like it's actually a little better than the 9 lives card that we just got.
That's not a high bar to clear.
That's very fair. But yeah, it's an enchantment. You like enchantments, right?
I do love enchantments. I'm like an enchantment slut, and I love enchantments. But I'm not going to play this. Even if I'm playing a Pillow Fort deck, which this is a Pillow Fort card, this isn't good enough. It only really stops burn effects, which is pretty narrow. And it does make a callback to an older card called Island Sanctuary, where there's this flying Pegasus coming towards you, moving away from an island. So I really like that aspect of the card, the sort of callback to Magic's own history. But besides that, don't play this card. It's not that good.
Well, I think that this card is definitely a staple because it hard counters Zerzoth, Chaos Rider, the Devil Tribal Leader that we talked about earlier.
God.
And it also hard counters one of our host's favorite decks, Perforos. So 100% a busted card. There you go.
Oh, you're right. Maybe I should play this then.
I think it's, in terms of actually analyzing the card, it's a little bit expensive at 5 mana. especially if you're playing like mono white. The ETB for creating 2/2 unicorns is kind of cute. It's nice. The combat damage is like a little bit niche, but I can definitely see, depending on your metagame, that this could be like a interesting tech choice that you could put in.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the second part more, where it's pretty much, you get one body on the field, and then you get a second body.
The part that doesn't hose your Perforos deck.
Right. Right.
Alright, this is Witch of the Moors, 3 colorless, black. Creature, human, warlock, 4/4, Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature, and you return up to 1 target creature from your graveyard to your hand.
So, I put this card down also. Because black has plenty of ways of gaining life, and this helps remove problematic cards that your opponents have on the field. The downside is that they get to choose. I think this card is just good enough to be usable to get you value. I don't think that this is going to be a staple in many decks, but, it has Death Touch too. It's nice.
Alright, I'm just gonna say this card is trash. It's like a bad edict effect. I would care about it only if it actually reanimated the creature to the battlefield instead of to your hand. For 5 mana, this ain't worth it. Yeet!
I think that it's decent for aristocrat decks, so I can see it being played. And then I think Commander is a format that values flexibility instead of necessarily efficiency sometimes. So the fact that it sacrifices a creature and has like some type of recursion allows it to, I think, have like a niche for some players. And then the Death Touch also allows it to basically chump or like at least dissuade people from hitting you. So I don't think it's a great card, but I think it's solid.
I think in the right deck, it could be a good budget replacement, just because I don't think that this is going to be one of those chase cards, like the next one.
I feel like you can make that excuse with any card. Okay, this is a bad card, but it's okay because you're on a budget.
Well, yeah, that's true, because, I don't think there are as many people who, like us, are spending hundreds of dollars on a weekly basis for cards, so, they do need those budget alternatives. Whether or not this is the right budget alternative is a different question.
Alright, we should talk about an actual good card now. Allosaurus Shepherd. It is a single green mana for a creature Elf Shaman. It is a 1/1, and it can't be countered. Green spells you control can't be countered. And then on top of that, it has an activated ability of 4 and green until end of turn. Each elf creature you control has base power and toughness 5/5, and it becomes a dinosaur in addition to its other creature types. Fuck. Shit.
Yeah, this card is nasty.
This card is dirty. Like, can I talk about this card?
Yeah, go for it.
Alright, so to be crystal clear, that middle ability says green spells. So, this makes your green creatures, green planeswalkers, green instants, green sorceries, green artifacts, and green enchantments uncounterable. Normally it's, only your green creatures are uncounterable. No, this is all your green spells. Fucking amazing. And then on top of that, this itself is uncounterable and only 1 green mana. God. And then on top of that, it's an elf, and if you're new to EDH, it can be argued that elf is the strongest tribe in this format. And then the activated ability, if you are building an elf tribal deck, it pumps up all of your elves while keeping them the elf subtype. So like even after you pump them up, you can still do crazy elf synergies, which is insane. It's, oh my lord. I will say that this is probably not as good of a card in super casual metas, but as you move up the power level in the Commander format, counterspells become more and more powerful, generally speaking, and this becomes a very good card. This is kind of insane to me that they would design this card. Like, the closest thing in my mind is Destiny Spinner, and that only makes your creatures and enchantments uncounterable. This makes all of your green spells. Dear Lord, this card is good. It's gonna be like so expensive.
In your opinion, would you rather run, or sorry, not would you rather run, because you're going to be running both of these cards, but which would you play first? Would you play Allosaurus Shepherd? So, okay, hold on. Let me paint a picture for you. Opening hand. You have a forest, some other cards, and Allosaurus Shepherd and Llanowar Elves. Which do you play first? The Llanowar Elves or the Allosaurus Shepherd?
It depends on, like, I don't think anyone's really going to counter your Llanowar Elves, so I'd probably play the Llanowar Elves first. I will add on to what I said earlier and say that this is pretty much an auto-include in mono-green decks. I'm just going to say that. I don't like the phrase auto-include, but I feel confident saying it here. If you're mono-green, you probably play this card. If you are a 2 or 3 color deck, then this, and you lean heavily green in your mana costs of your cards, this is a serious consideration. However, once you start moving more into like a 4 or 5 color deck, this card might not be played as much unless your win condition is like green. So as you become more colors, you probably play this card less, but this card is still really, really good.
Okay. I mean, I was just kind of curious, is what would you do first? Because I think it's tough. This card's nice. I like this card.
Yeah, not much else to say. It's a very strong anti-counter card, and then it has the ability to become like a beater later on in the game if like the board state is like a more neutral level and you need a 5/5 in a pinch. So the next card is Branching Evolution. 2 generic and a green. It's an enchantment, and it says if 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead.
So I put down this card because to me, it's a third of Doubling Season. And Doubling Season is an insane card. But you have this card and Parallel Lives almost equaling Doubling Season. Because the only part that's now missing is the Doubling Planeswalker loyalty counters. Since it's not all the counters, it's just the +1/+1 counters. But yeah, I feel like this was definitely going to be... There's that one commander who's Frisch Carr, Pima Renegade, who says whoever has a +1/+1 counter on it, you can tap them for mana. So I feel like this is going to be really good there. But yeah, green just has many ways of pumping up your creatures. So I feel like, if you're trying to go with a big creatures deck, this is a good include.
Yeah, I will say, like, if you're making a +1/+1 counters theme deck, sure, you play this. There aren't that many of them in Commander in the big scope of things. This does combo with Marath and Gave decks specifically. I don't know. It's not as powerful as I think a lot of people are making it out to be. And for the reason I think they made this card is because it's only +1/+1 counters that are being doubled. WotC is moving away from effects that double any kind of counter. So making this card that only doubles a certain type of counter is fine for them, and I am happy to see.
I think in Commander, especially with our 199 card decks, it's nice to have a level of redundancy, and then just have basically cards that do the same thing if the thing that they're doing is good, and have multiple copies of them. And I think this is one of those cards because it's 3 mana instead of 5, Doubling Season. And then for any counters matters kind of deck, like +1/+1 counters deck. I think it's a solid include. Like, it's definitely decent, and the deck that I can think of that abuses it the most is like Per and Toothy, because any deck that uses counters for those partners, they're very, very strong.
Wrapping up here, now that we've talked about all the major cards in this set, let's talk about the best new cards. So, I want to hear from you guys first. What do you think are the best new cards from this set?
I mean, there's so many just good Voltron commanders to choose
Shut the
from.
fuck up. I'm gonna
It's just so hard to choose, man. Like, Derek, what do
So
you
while Guy is
think?
thinking of the best Voltron commander, I definitely am the most excited for Inia, the Gale Force, because I definitely think that she is one of the more underrated commanders that are released in this set. And then it's not her ability to shift control of permanence. It's not random, and it creates like a more interactive social element where you can again like trade threats with people and like make allies. And flying tribal, I think something that should be noted is that not every deck has flying, so sometimes you could just end games by poking people to death with flyers. And I'm just glad that it's Azorius commander that isn't Grand Arbiter or like some type of Staxy garbage.
That commander definitely does unique things for Azorius, but I would say for my answer, it's going to be Tiny Bones, both as the most popular commander from this set. I think the data, at least on EDH Rec, is already showing that Tiny Bones is going to be the next most popular commander from this product. And also Tiny Bones, I think, has the highest power potential as a commander from this set. I am also really excited for 99 cards being the Unicorn that flickers and Allosaurus Shepherd, the thing that makes your green spells uncounterable. That's my answer.
Yeah, I think for me, best new 99 cards, Emil and Allosaurus Shepherd. Though Emil being more likely to be just used in the 99
Wow,
for
you copycat.
CEDH. Shut up. 99 for CEDH combos, and trying to just use her as a infinite mana value generator. Whereas Allosaurus Shepherd, I think, could see play more so in both metas. But best commander, I don't feel like there's one that I think this is similar to Corsa 2021, where not one super stands out as the strongest one. I do also like, again, how we only got 10 commanders to review for this one, but I would probably say either Kells or Bruvok as the strongest ones. But I don't see these being back-breaking kind of commanders, in my opinion.
Alright, so I know we've talked about these new cards, especially over the last hour, but I want to remind everyone listening that this is primarily a reprint-focused set, and I think all three of us are very happy in that regard. We like reprints, we like making cards cheaper, yeah?
Yes.
Alright.
I don't like how Allosaurus Shepherd is only $90 right now, but
yeah, so don't buy it online as a single until it actually physically drops, because otherwise you're going to pay way too much money and you're going to cry yourself to sleep, at least for a month. And just don't do that. Wait for it to physically drop and then buy it, at the very earliest. Alright. I want to thank all of you so much for listening. Derek, thank you for coming on once again. You're a blast to have on, even though you dig on Voltron so much.
Dude, it's my favorite deck type.
I hate you. Alright, so if you do like what we do here, the number one way you can support us is to go onto YouTube and subscribe to us. That is probably what we're trying to accomplish most here, is to just get our YouTube subscribers numbers up, because that really does matter. Thank you again all for listening. We are the Wizard Staff. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to leave a like and review wherever you can. We are again on YouTube, Facebook, and search The Wizard Staff. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WizardStaff101, and send us an email at thewizardstaff101@gmail.com if you want to bitch and complain about how stupid we fucking are. Thank you all so much for listening, and have a good night. Peace.
Peace.
Bye-bye.